My name is Jason Miller. I was 27 years old when I decided to leave the military. Most people thought I was crazy. For years, I had been exactly where everyone expected me to be. I was one of the youngest officers in my unit, trusted with missions most people never heard about. I had spent years following orders, moving from one assignment to another, and putting my life on the line for a country I loved. But after my last deployment, I realized something. I was tired of coming home to an empty apartment. I was tired of celebrating birthdays through video calls. I was tired of telling the woman I loved, maybe next month. So I made a decision. I was going home, not for another mission, not for another promotion, for a normal life, for marriage. My fiancée, Sarah Collins, had waited for me for 3 years. She was the person who believed I would eventually choose a life outside the military. And now, I was finally keeping that promise. The morning I submitted my resignation, everyone in the headquarters was shocked. My friend Ryan looked at the paper in my hand and shook his head. "You're actually doing it?" I smiled. "Yeah. Jason, you realize people would kill for your position, right?" "I know. You're walking away from everything." I looked at the resignation form. "No, I'm finally walking toward something." Ryan stared at me for a few seconds. "You really love her that much?" I nodded. "She waited for me. I owe her a future." He sighed. "I never thought I'd see the day Jason Miller chose a wedding ring over a uniform." I laughed. "Neither did I. I thought that was the hardest part." I was wrong. Because the hardest part came 5 minutes later, when I walked into Colonel Olivia Carter's office. Everyone in the military knew her name. Colonel Olivia Carter, 32 years old, the youngest female colonel in our division. Brilliant, disciplined, untouchable. People called her the Ice Queen. Not because she was cruel, because nobody had ever seen her lose control. She never smiled during briefings, never showed fear during missions, never let emotions affect her decisions. She was the kind of commander who could walk into a room and make everyone stand straighter without saying a word. And she was my commanding officer. I placed my resignation letter on her desk. "Colonel Carter." She didn't look up immediately. She continued reading a report. Then she slowly lifted her eyes. Her expression changed the moment she saw the paper. "Resignation?" "Yes, ma'am." For several seconds, the room was completely silent. I expected anger. I expected questions. I expected her to tell me I was making a mistake. But Olivia Carter did none of those things. She simply asked, "Why?" I stood straight. "Because I'm going home." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Going home?" "Yes." "To do what?" I hesitated for a moment. Then I answered honestly. "To get married." Something changed. It was small, almost impossible to notice. But I saw it. The Ice Queen finally reacted. Her fingers stopped moving. "You're getting married?" "Yes." "To who?" I frowned. "Why does that matter?" Her voice became colder. "Answer the question, Jason." I looked at her. "Sarah Collins." Olivia leaned back in her chair. Sarah's name seemed to bother her more than my resignation. I didn't understand why. 3 years, she said. I looked confused. "What? You were deployed for 3 years?" She waited. "Yes." "She never saw what you saw." I stayed quiet. "She doesn't know who you became." I frowned. "Colonel, with all due respect, my personal life isn't part of this discussion." Usually, nobody talked back to Olivia Carter. Nobody. But I did. And instead of getting angry, she stood up. She walked around her desk. Then she picked up my resignation letter and tore it in half. I froze. "Colonel." She dropped the pieces onto the desk. "You're not leaving today." I stared at her. "Excuse me." "You heard me. My resignation was approved by the proper channels. Not by me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Colonel Carter, with respect, you cannot stop me from leaving because you don't like my decision." She stepped closer. Her expression was calm. Too calm. "I'm not stopping you because I dislike your decision." "Then why?" She looked directly into my eyes. And for the first time since I met her, Olivia Carter looked nervous. Only for a second. Then it disappeared. "Because the person you're planning to marry isn't the person you should choose." My face changed. "What?" She continued. "You think you're going home because you found your future." She paused. "But you're actually running away from the only person who has always understood you." I stared at her. I couldn't believe my ears. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked back to her desk and opened a drawer. Inside was a folder. She placed it in front of me. I looked at the cover. My name was written on it. Jason Miller. What is this? Everything I know about you. I laughed once. Colonel, you're my commander. Of course you know my service record. No. Her voice became softer. Everything. I opened the folder. Inside were reports, mission records, photos, documents. But some of them weren't military records. They were personal. My injuries, my recovery, the times I almost gave up, the moments I never told anyone about. I looked up. How long have you been keeping this? Since the first mission we worked together. My heart skipped. Why? For the first time, Olivia Carter didn't have an immediate answer. She looked away, then said quietly, because you were the first person who treated me like a person instead of a rank. I didn't speak. She continued. Everyone else sees Colonel Carter. You saw Olivia. The room became silent. I closed the folder. Colonel. She interrupted me. Jason. It was the first time she had ever called me by my first name without a mission involved. You can leave. I looked at her. You can go home. She walked closer. But before you do, she stopped directly in front of me. Her voice was calm, almost emotionless, but her words changed everything. If you're going home to marry someone, she looked into my eyes. Make sure it's not the wrong woman. I swallowed. What are you saying? Olivia Carter, the woman who had never hesitated in front of enemies, finally said the one sentence nobody expected. Jason, if you leave this base, who is going to marry me? I left Colonel Olivia Carter's office that afternoon with one thought in my mind. She had lost her mind. That was the only explanation. The woman who could command hundreds of soldiers, who could make experienced officers nervous with a single look, had just stood in front of me and asked who was going to marry her if I left. I replayed those words the entire drive home. Not because I believed them, because I couldn't understand them. Olivia Carter wasn't someone who joked. She wasn't someone who acted without a reason. But marriage? With me? It didn't make sense. When I arrived at my apartment, Ryan was waiting outside with 2 beers in his hands. The moment he saw my face, he knew something was wrong. What happened? I opened the door. Nothing. Ryan followed me inside. Jason, I've known you for 6 years. You have the same expression you had when we almost got trapped behind enemy lines. I looked at him. That's serious? Yes. I dropped my bag on the table. My resignation got complicated. Ryan laughed. Complicated? You're leaving the military, not negotiating a peace treaty. I didn't answer. That made him stop smiling. What happened? I sat down. Colonel Carter. Ryan immediately became serious. Wait. The Colonel Carter. I nodded. The Ice Queen. Yes. He stared at me. What did she do? I looked at him. She asked me not to leave. Ryan shrugged. That's normal. You're one of her best officers. I shook my head. No. What? She didn't ask me to stay in the military. Ryan's expression changed. What are you talking about? I looked away. She asked me who was going to marry her if I left. The room went silent. Then Ryan slowly put his beer down. Jason. Yeah. Are you telling me Colonel Carter confessed to you? No. Then what was that? I don't know. Ryan leaned back. You realize every guy on this base would trade places with you right now? That's because they don't know her. Ryan laughed. Actually, that's exactly why they would trade places with you. I ignored him. Because the truth was, I didn't know Olivia either. Not really. I knew Colonel Carter. The commander. The strategist. The woman who never showed weakness. But the person standing in front of me yesterday was different. And that bothered me. 2 weeks later, I was back in my hometown of Cedar Falls, Iowa. I expected life to feel different. I expected peace. I expected happiness. After years of missions and orders, I thought a normal life would finally feel right. But something felt wrong. Sarah noticed it too. You're quiet. I looked up from my coffee. Sorry. She smiled. You always do that. Do what? Disappear. I frowned. What? You're sitting right here, but your mind is somewhere else. I didn't answer. Because she was right. Part of me was still thinking about Olivia. Not romantically. At least, that was what I told myself. I was thinking about the conversation. About why she cared. About what she knew. Sarah reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Jason, I'm happy you're finally here. I smiled. Me too. But before I could say anything else, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. A familiar voice came through. Jason. I froze. Colonel Carter? Sarah looked at me. I stood up. Why are you calling me? There was a pause. Then Olivia said, because you're in danger. My expression changed. What? You need to listen carefully. I walked away from the table. What are you talking about? The reason you were allowed to leave wasn't because your resignation was accepted. I frowned. What does that mean? It means someone wanted you away from the base. My heart tightened. Who? I don't know yet. That answer shocked me. Because Olivia Carter always knew everything. You don't know? No. Her voice became serious. But I know one thing. What? Someone has been watching you. I looked outside. The street was quiet. Normal. Too normal. Olivia, are you saying my life is in danger? I'm saying the woman you're planning to marry may not be the person you think she is. My face changed. Don't talk about Sarah like that. I'm not accusing her. Then what are you saying? I'm saying someone has been hiding information from you. I stayed silent. Then I heard something in her voice. Concern. Real concern. Jason. What? Do not sign anything. I frowned. What? Marriage documents. Financial agreements. Anything. My hand tightened around the phone. Why? But she didn't answer immediately. Then she said, because I found something. What? A connection between Sarah Collins and people involved in your last mission. My blood went cold. That's impossible. I wanted it to be impossible too. I looked back toward Sarah. She was still sitting at the table, waiting for me, smiling, like nothing was wrong. Olivia, if you have something to say, say it. Her voice became quieter. I need proof before I tell you everything. Why? Because once you know the truth. She paused. You won't be able to look at her the same way again. The call ended. I stood there for a long time. I didn't know what to believe. Sarah was the woman who waited for me. The woman who wrote me letters during deployment. The woman I planned to marry. But Olivia had never been wrong about a mission. Never. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I received a message. From an unknown number. One photo. That was all. I opened it. And my entire world stopped. It was Sarah, standing beside a man I recognized. A man connected to my final military operation. Below the photo was one sentence. You were never supposed to come home. I stared at the screen. For the first time in years, I felt something I hated. Doubt. And somewhere far away, Colonel Olivia Carter already knew the truth I was about to discover. My resignation wasn't the end of my old life. It was the beginning of finding out who wanted to destroy my new one. I stared at the photo on my phone for almost 5 minutes. I wanted to believe it was fake. I wanted to believe someone had edited it. I wanted to believe Olivia Carter was wrong. Because if she was right, everything I had spent 3 years believing was a lie. Sarah wasn't just my fiancée. She was the person I trusted most. The person who waited for me while I was overseas. The person who told me every night that she couldn't wait for the day I came home. I put my phone down, then picked it back up. The photo was still there. Sarah standing next to Daniel Hayes. The same Daniel Hayes who had been investigated after my final mission. The same man whose name disappeared from every official report. The same man Olivia warned me about. I needed answers. And I needed them from Sarah. Not from Olivia. Not from anyone else. I walked back into the kitchen. Sarah looked at me and smiled. Who was that? I looked at her. Just someone from work. She studied my face. You're lying. That surprised me. Because Sarah knew me. She knew when I was hiding something. I sat down across from her. Sarah. Yes. Do you know a man named Daniel Hayes? The moment I said his name, something changed. It was quick. Almost invisible. But I saw it. Her hand stopped moving. Why are you asking? I leaned forward. So you do know him? She looked away. Jason, where did you hear that name? I didn't answer. Instead, I watched her reaction. That was when I realized something. A person who had nothing to hide would ask. Who is he? Sarah didn't. She asked how I knew. That was different. Sarah. She sighed. Jason, this isn't what you think. Those words made my stomach tighten. Because everyone who was hiding something said the same thing. It's not what you think. I stood up. Then tell me what it is. She looked at me. Daniel was just someone I knew. Just someone. Yes. Then why were you meeting him? Silence. A long silence. And that silence answered more than words. I walked away. Not because I was angry. Because I was afraid of what she would say next. That night, I called Olivia. She answered immediately. As if she was waiting. You saw something. It wasn't a question. I sat in my car outside my house. Tell me everything. There was a pause. Then Olivia spoke. When you were deployed 6 months ago, your team discovered illegal financial transfers connected to a private security company. I listened. That company belonged to Daniel Hayes. Yes. And Sarah? I found her name connected to several communications. I closed my eyes. No. Jason. No. My voice became louder. She waited for me. Olivia didn't argue. She might have. That answer hurt more than if she had accused Sarah directly. What does that mean? It means someone can care about you and still betray you. I didn't respond because I knew she was right. Olivia continued. Jason, there's something else. What? The day before you submitted your resignation. She stopped. Someone accessed your military files. My eyes opened. Who? I'm still investigating. Olivia. I don't know yet. Her voice became serious. But I know they wanted you away from the military. Why? Because as long as you stayed, they couldn't finish what they started. I looked toward my house. Sarah was inside, waiting, or pretending to wait. What are you saying? I'm saying your resignation may have been exactly what they wanted. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I thought leaving was my choice. Maybe it wasn't. The next day, I decided to follow Sarah. I hated doing it. Every part of me hated it. But I needed the truth. I watched her leave the house and drive to a small office building downtown. I followed. When she walked inside, I waited. 10 minutes later, Daniel Hayes arrived. My heart sank. I walked closer. The office window was slightly open. I could hear their voices. Did he sign anything? That was Sarah. My body froze. Daniel answered. Not yet. You said he would. He's more careful than you expected. Sarah sighed. Jason always was. I felt my chest tighten. They were talking about me. Once he signs the marriage agreement, everything will transfer. Marriage agreement. Transfer. My hands became cold. Daniel lowered his voice. And then, Sarah didn't answer immediately. Then she said, then he loses everything. I stepped back. The world around me felt unreal. The woman I planned to marry wasn't waiting for my return. She was waiting for my signature. I wanted to confront them. I wanted to walk in and demand answers. But something stopped me. A voice in my head. The same voice that saved my life countless times during missions. Stay calm. Collect information. Strike when they least expect it. So I walked away. I didn't call Sarah. I didn't call Daniel. I called Olivia. She answered after one ring. Jason. My voice was different. What you told me was true. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. I looked ahead. No. I shook my head. You were the only person who tried to protect me. Another silence. Then Olivia asked, what are you going to do? I looked at the photo of Sarah and Daniel. At the woman I once planned to marry. Then I said, I'm going to let them think they won. Jason, I'm going to let Sarah believe I know nothing. Olivia understood immediately. You're setting a trap. Yes. But this time, you're not following orders. I smiled slightly. No. I looked at the road ahead. This time, I'm choosing my own mission. For the first time in weeks, Olivia's voice softened. Be careful. I paused. Because that was not something Colonel Carter usually said. It sounded less like a command, and more like a person who was afraid of losing someone. I will. Before hanging up, Olivia said one more thing. Jason. Yeah. Come back alive. I closed my eyes. Because those words reminded me of something. The woman I was supposed to marry wanted my future. But the woman I never expected was fighting to protect it. I spent the next few days pretending everything was normal. That was the hardest mission I had ever accepted. Not because of the danger. Because I had to look at Sarah every day and pretend I still trusted her. I had to sit across from her at dinner. I had to listen to her talk about our wedding plans. I had to smile when she showed me pictures of venues. Every word felt like a test. Every smile felt like a lie. But I remembered what Olivia told me. Don't act until you know everything. So I waited. I watched. And I learned. Sarah wasn't working alone. Daniel Hayes was only one piece of the puzzle. There were others. People with money. People with connections. People who had spent years building a plan around me. And the worst part? I finally understood why they needed me. My final military mission wasn't just a successful operation. It exposed a network of illegal contracts involving several private defense companies. Before leaving the military, I had access to information that could destroy powerful people. They couldn't control me while I was still serving. So they needed me gone. They needed me to quit. They needed me to believe I was simply choosing love over duty. But now I knew. My resignation wasn't freedom. It was the first step of their plan. 3 days later, Sarah came home with a folder. I was sitting on the couch. She smiled. Jason. I looked up. What's that? She sat beside me. Something important. My instincts immediately warned me. What? Our marriage agreement. I looked at the folder. There it was. The moment they had been waiting for. The signature. The trap. Sarah opened it. I know this isn't romantic. She laughed softly. But we're both adults. We need to protect ourselves. I looked at her. Protect ourselves? Yes. She touched my hand. I love you, Jason. But marriage involves money, property, and responsibilities. I almost laughed. Almost. Because I finally understood. She wasn't asking me to build a future. She was asking me to hand it over. I picked up the papers. I'll read it. Her smile became brighter. Of course. She stood up. I knew you would understand. After she walked away, I looked at the document. And I saw everything. A transfer agreement. A financial authorization. A legal clause that would allow her access to assets connected to my military compensation and family trust. She wasn't just trying to take money. She was trying to control my entire future. I put the papers down. Then I made a decision. I was done waiting. That night, I called Olivia. She answered immediately. Did she give you the agreement? I froze. How did you know? Because Daniel tried the same method with another officer 2 years ago. My eyes narrowed. You knew? I suspected. Olivia. My voice became serious. How much do you know? Silence. Then she said, more than I told you. I stood up. What does that mean? I knew Sarah was connected to Daniel before you left the base. My expression changed. Then why didn't you tell me? Because that was the question that had been bothering me. If Olivia cared so much, why did she let me walk into this? Her answer was quiet. Because you would have defended her. I didn't speak. And I understood why. She continued. You loved her. I looked away. But I needed you to see the truth yourself. I sighed. You could have saved me a lot of pain. Yes. Her voice lowered. But I couldn't save someone who refused to see he needed saving. That sentence hit me. Because she was right. The next morning, I made my move. I contacted a lawyer I trusted from my military days. Michael Reynolds. He was one of the few people who knew the full details of my final operation. When he arrived, he looked at the documents and immediately became serious. Jason. What? You understand what this means, right? I nodded. They planned this carefully. Michael shook his head. No. He looked at me. They planned this for years. Years. That word stayed in my mind. Then Michael gave me another piece of information. Something that changed everything. Jason, there's one more thing. What? The company behind Daniel Hayes. He paused. It has someone inside your old unit. My face changed. Someone in the military? Yes. Who? Michael hesitated. Then placed a file on the table. I opened it. And froze. The name at the top belonged to someone I trusted. Someone who had fought beside me. Someone who had saved my life. I couldn't believe it. This isn't possible. Michael looked at me. I wish it wasn't. That afternoon, I received a call. Not from Sarah. Not from Daniel. From Olivia. Her voice was different. Jason, you need to leave your house. I frowned. Why? Because they know. My heart stopped. What? Someone discovered you're investigating. How? I don't know. Another pause. But you're exposed. I grabbed my jacket. Where should I go? There was silence. Then Olivia said, come to me. I stopped. What? Come to the base. Olivia. Jason, listen to me. Her voice was no longer the voice of a commander. It was the voice of someone terrified. I don't care about the rules anymore. I didn't speak. I don't care about my position. A pause. I don't care what happens to my career. Her next words shocked me. I already lost too many people I cared about. My hand tightened around the phone. Olivia. She whispered. I won't lose you. For the first time, I understood. The Ice Queen wasn't emotionless. She was someone who had spent years hiding how deeply she cared. And now, she was willing to risk everything. I drove back toward the base. But I didn't know something. Someone was following me. And before the night ended, the woman who wanted to destroy my future would finally discover something. She wasn't fighting a helpless man anymore. She was fighting Jason Miller. And I was done losing. I returned to the base that night. The same place I had planned to leave forever. A few weeks earlier, I walked through those gates believing I was escaping a life that no longer belonged to me. Now I was coming back because it was the only place where I could uncover the truth. The guards recognized me immediately, but their expressions were different. Confused, concerned, like they knew something had changed. When I reached the command building, Olivia was already waiting. Not behind her desk, not wearing the cold expression everyone knew. She was standing there as Olivia, not Colonel Carter. The moment she saw me, she walked forward. "You came." I nodded. "You told me to." She looked at me for a second, then quietly said, "I wasn't sure you would." I almost smiled. "You know me better than that." A small expression appeared on her face. Not quite a smile, but close. "That's the problem." I frowned. "What?" She looked away. "I know you too well." For years, people feared Olivia Carter because she never showed weakness. But standing in front of me now, I realized something. She wasn't cold. She was careful. There was a difference. Inside the office, Olivia showed me everything. The investigation, the financial records, the connections between Daniel Hayes and the private security company, and finally, the person inside my old unit. I stared at the file. Captain Ethan Brooks. Olivia nodded. "You trusted him." I couldn't answer. Ethan wasn't just another officer. He was my partner. The man who pulled me out during my final mission. The man who told everyone I was the reason he survived. I looked at Olivia. "How long have you known?" 3 months. "And you didn't tell me?" I didn't have enough proof. I understood. Because in our world, suspicion wasn't enough. Evidence mattered. One accusation could destroy a career. But knowing the truth didn't make it hurt less. I closed the file. "What's their final plan?" Olivia looked serious. "They want you to sign the marriage agreement." I nodded. "Because once Sarah has access to my assets, they can use your name, your money, and your connections, and destroy everything I built." "Yes." I sat there silently. Then Olivia asked, "What are you going to do?" A few weeks ago, I would have said I wanted to go home. I would have said I wanted a quiet life. A house. A family. A normal future. But now, I realized something. I wasn't running away from the military. I was running away from myself. I looked at Olivia. "I'm going to end this." She nodded. "I knew you would." Then I asked, "After this is over?" She looked at me. "What? What happens?" For the first time, Olivia didn't have an answer. The next morning, we put the plan into motion. I returned home. Sarah was waiting. The moment I walked in, she smiled. "There you are." I looked at her. "You missed me." She walked closer. Of course. I wanted to believe she was acting. But part of me wondered, was anything real? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a target? Sarah handed me the agreement again. "Jason, I think you're ready now." I picked it up. "I am." Her eyes lit up. "Really?" I nodded. "I'm ready." She smiled. A smile I used to love. A smile I now understood. She thought she had won. I opened the document. Then signed. Sarah almost looked relieved. "Thank you." I looked at her. "You're welcome." She didn't know. The document she gave me was already useless. Before I signed, my lawyer had changed the agreement. The moment she tried to transfer anything, the entire plan would collapse. But I wasn't finished. Because I needed them all together. I needed Daniel. I needed Ethan. I needed everyone involved. And I knew exactly how to make them appear. 2 days later, Sarah invited Daniel to our house. She thought I didn't know. But I was ready. I sat in the living room as they walked in. Daniel looked surprised. "Jason." I smiled. "Daniel." Sarah looked nervous. "Jason, what are you doing?" I stood up. "Actually, I should ask you two the same question." Their expressions changed. Daniel stepped forward. "What are you talking about?" I laughed. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" Silence. Sarah's face became pale. "Jason." "No." I shook my head. "Don't." For the first time, I let them see the anger I had been hiding. "You used me." Sarah's eyes filled with fear. "That's not true." I looked at her. "Then explain why you planned to take control of my assets." No answer. "Explain why Daniel was involved." Still nothing. Then Daniel suddenly smiled. And that worried me. Because it wasn't the expression of someone caught. It was the expression of someone who still believed he had control. "You really think you won?" I stared at him. "What?" He laughed. "Jason, you're still the same. You always think you're the smartest person in the room." He stepped closer. "But you forgot one thing." "What?" "You left the military." I didn't react. Because that was exactly what I wanted him to think. He believed I was alone. Weak. Without protection. Then the front door opened. Everyone turned. Olivia Carter walked inside. Not alone. Behind her were federal investigators. Daniel's expression changed instantly. Sarah froze. And for the first time, I saw fear on their faces. Olivia looked at me. Then at them. Daniel Hayes. The investigators moved forward. You're under investigation for fraud, conspiracy, and illegal military information transfers. Daniel stepped back. This is impossible. Olivia looked at him. No. Her voice was cold. This is what happens when you underestimate the person you tried to destroy. Sarah started crying. Jason, please. I looked at her. The woman I once planned to spend my life with. I gave you everything. She whispered. I loved you. I stayed silent. Because maybe once she did. But love without honesty wasn't love. It was a weapon. After everything ended, I stood outside with Olivia. The case was over. My name was cleared. My future was finally mine again. But something felt different. Olivia looked at me. You can go now. I smiled slightly. Go where? She looked confused. Home. I looked at her. Then shook my head. I thought I was going home before. She didn't say anything. Then I realized something. What? I stepped closer. I was chasing a place. I looked at her. But I should have been looking for a person. For the first time, Olivia Carter looked completely speechless. The Ice Queen had no response. And that was when I knew. The woman who could face any enemy in the world was afraid of one thing. Being chosen. After everything ended, people expected me to leave. They thought Jason Miller would finally go home. They thought I would return to the quiet life I once wanted. And maybe they were right. A few months earlier, that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted a small house. A normal job. A peaceful life where I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I thought happiness was something simple. Something far away from missions, orders, and danger. But after everything that happened, I realized I had been wrong. I wasn't searching for a peaceful life. I was searching for the right person to share it with. And that person was never Sarah. 3 weeks after Daniel Hayes was arrested, I visited Olivia at the headquarters. She was sitting behind her desk, reviewing reports like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't almost sacrificed her entire career to protect me. Like she hadn't walked into danger without hesitation. I stood at the door. Still working? She looked up. Someone has to. I smiled. You haven't changed. She looked back at the documents. Neither have you. I walked inside. Really? Yes. She closed the folder. You still rush into danger. I laughed. And you still pretend you don't care. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then she said, that's because caring gets people hurt. I looked at her. That's what you believe. She nodded. It's what I learned. I stepped closer. Olivia. She looked at me. You spent years protecting everyone else. I paused. But who protected you? She looked away. That was the first time I saw her lose the confidence she always carried. Not because she was weak. Because nobody had ever asked her that question. A few days later, Olivia received news. Her promotion was approved. She was being transferred to a higher command position in Washington. Everyone congratulated her. It was everything she had worked for. But when I saw her that evening, she didn't look happy. You should be celebrating. She looked at me. Should I? I frowned. You earned it. Yes. She looked down. But accepting it means leaving. I understood immediately. The promotion meant another city. Another life. Another distance between us. I smiled. Then go. Her expression changed. What? You should take it. She looked surprised. I thought. She stopped. I waited. You thought what? She looked away. I thought maybe you would ask me to stay. I smiled. Olivia Carter. Yes. Do you really think I would ever ask you to give up your dream? She didn't answer. Because she knew the answer. I wouldn't. That was the difference between me and everyone else. I didn't want to own her. I wanted to stand beside her. 2 weeks later, Olivia was preparing to leave. Everyone at the base came to say goodbye. Even the soldiers who were terrified of her respected her. Because they knew the truth. The Ice Queen wasn't cold. She was loyal. She was the person who always stayed when everyone else left. As she walked toward the vehicle, I stopped her. Olivia. She turned around. Yes. I reached into my pocket. She looked confused. Then she froze. Because I wasn't holding military orders. I wasn't holding a mission file. I was holding a ring. For the first time in my life. I saw Olivia Carter completely speechless. Jason. I smiled. You once asked me who would marry you if I left. Her eyes became emotional. I remember. I stepped closer. I didn't answer you then. She looked at me. Why? Because I was too busy trying to return to a life I thought I wanted. I took a breath. But I know the answer now. The entire base was silent. Everyone was watching. The woman who had commanded them through impossible situations was standing there unable to say a word. Olivia Carter. I looked into her eyes. Will you marry me? For several seconds, she didn't move. Then she asked, Are you sure? I smiled. About you. I nodded. I have never been more certain about anything. Her eyes became red, but she still tried to hide it. Because she was Olivia Carter, the Ice Queen, the woman who never showed emotion. But this time, she failed. She smiled. And everyone around us saw something they never thought they would see. Colonel Olivia Carter was happy. 6 months later, we got married. Not in a military ceremony. Not in a place filled with ranks and orders. Just two people choosing each other. On our wedding day, Ryan looked at me and laughed. I still can't believe this happened. I adjusted my suit. What? You left the military to marry Sarah. I looked at him. And somehow you ended up marrying Colonel Carter. I smiled. Life changes. Ryan shook his head. No, your life is insane. I laughed. Maybe he was right. Because if someone told me a year ago that I would leave everything behind and end up marrying the woman I once thought was impossible to reach, I would have never believed them. After the ceremony, Olivia and I stood together. She looked at me. Jason. Yeah. Do you ever regret leaving? I thought about it. The missions. The betrayal. The pain. The moment I lost the future I thought I had. Then I looked at her. No. She smiled. Not even once. Not even once. She leaned against me. You know what's funny? What? I spent my entire career commanding people. And the one person I couldn't command. She looked at me. Was the one person who chose me freely. I smiled. Good. Why? Because I never wanted your orders. I held her hand. I wanted your heart. People still call Olivia Carter the Ice Queen. They still talk about the legendary colonel who never lost a battle. But they don't know the part of the story that mattered most. They don't know that the strongest woman I ever met was afraid of being abandoned. They don't know that behind the cold expression was someone who simply wanted to be chosen. And they don't know that the day I submitted my resignation, I thought I was leaving my old life behind. I was wrong. That was the day I found the person who would become my future. My name is Jason Miller. I left the military to go home and get married. But the woman who stopped me at the door became the only person I was ever meant to come home to.